everyone. Welcome back to the social media derby. And this time we can actually genuinely say welcome back. You probably have noticed we haven't been active. We've been off for a month because the fella next to me got married. So congrats, Johns, Mr. Chang, officially. Well done.
Thank you very much.
It was a great wedding. Lots of traveling involved, so that's the reason why we've been missing for a little bit. And some technical difficulties and all kinds of stuff like that. But we're back now, just in time for the end of the season. Sadly, one that Johns is not celebrating, but we'll get into that in a minute. But before we get into it, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can. Drop your comments down below. Do you think Arsenal lost the league? City won the league? Do you think United should get in Europe? Ten Hag should stay in and out? There's going to be lots of talking points on today's pod, so get involved. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other audio-only platforms, please follow. Give us a 5-star review if you can. Ignore the fact that for some reason we're in the American football category of Spotify. And find us. Those of you who enjoy football, the real football. Let's get into it then, Johns. Obviously, apart from the wedding and all your celebrations, how you been doing? You doing all right? You still fighting the old jet lag?
Yeah, man, I'm doing all right, but yeah, my body clock is all over the place right now, and have done a lot of flying in the last 7 days. So yeah, I'm running on fumes, but there's a lot to talk about, so I'm up for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one because we genuinely haven't really talked about football for weeks and weeks with all the activities going on. So we've got a lot to catch up on. And we've missed a bunch of games, to be honest. I think we missed the last 6 or 7 or maybe more than that game weeks. Probably good for me considering the amount of D's, L's, pause I'm seeing on my form guide for Man United. But been a bit of a stinker. We'll give a quick roundup for those of you who've been living under a rock, or only get your football content from us, which is probably about 5 people, but we'll go anyway. Arsenal ended up the season in second, 89 points, plus 62 goal difference. At some point, you guys were like way ahead of City, like 15 or 16 goals better off. But I think you guys both ended up on plus 62. So I don't know how the hell that happened.
Yeah.
But wild. So you missed out on the title by 2 points. Both of you winning on the final day. Sadly, City were up within about 80 seconds of the game, so it didn't ever kind of look like you guys were going to do it, which was a bit of a sad one. But still, second, good in the table. We finished 8th, our lowest ever Premier League finish. Not our lowest ever Premier League points total. We just about got above the royal stinker of Ralph Ragnick's season that we had a couple of years ago when we finished on 58 points. We finished on 60 this year, but more shameful, I think, than anything, we finished in bloody minus goal difference, -1. I think, don't know, honestly, I don't know how he's... Literally, you guys have got more goal difference plus points than we've got points on the table. It's actually absolutely disgusting. And the final 8 games, your record was pretty spectacular, to be honest, and you had some really hard games in there. You went away to Spurs, away to us, which might not have been that hard at the end of it, but you had a home to Chelsea, who you spanked. You had probably the hardest running, and there's just one blemish on there. That L at home to Aston Villa, who, congrats to them, made it in the Champions League. I don't know if I predicted that, but I think we both predicted Villa to do well. So we're in very esteemed company with Sir Alex Ferguson, who was the other one who I know who predicted Villa to do pretty well. I saw that clip going around where he obviously looks like an absolute genius now. At the time, he looked like a maniac because Newcastle just battered them like 5-0 or something, and he said Aston Villa are going to do well. But he's a legend for a reason. So you guys had a almost immaculate end to the season, almost immaculate 2024. Us, on the other hand, 3 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses in our final 8 games. Probably the most disappointing in all of those was the away pummeling at Crystal Palace, who are absolutely cooking. To be fair, they spanked so many teams in the back end, but we went out pretty limp in that game, and the rest were we lost to you guys, but I don't think we can touch on that a little bit if you want, because obviously it's a social media derby. We should probably talk about the game between the two of us, but wasn't the greatest game. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know
No,
how
it
you
was
felt,
not.
John. So it was a bit of a stinker all round. You
Yeah.
guys didn't play that well, I think, and we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. If it wasn't for a massive mistake, could have easily ended a draw, which wouldn't have been good for the title race, and wouldn't have made any difference to our league finish. But yeah, it was a bit
I
of a
mean,
smelly one in that game.
you know a game is terrible when the biggest highlight from it is the fact that there's rain coming through the roof of your stadium.
Well, that happens to us regularly. Sadly,
It does,
we've
but I
got
mean,
terrible.
if that's the biggest talking point of a match, then you know it wasn't exactly a humdinger of a fixture. So there's not really too much to touch on. We just didn't seem to come out and try and really go for it crazily. We kind of just got the goal, sat back a little bit, and that was that. And somehow you guys just didn't manage to really get any proper threat on goal.
Mm,
Outside of, like, I think it was like Hoyland's kind of slip, I think in the first half or whatever it was. But yeah,
yeah,
wasn't really a great game generally, so we don't have to touch on it too much. Hasn't made much of a difference to the overall outcome of the Manchester
no,
Robots winning their fourth league in a row.
yeah. We'll get to. I mean, I, I, you know how I felt. We had a couple of within the wedding party of mates. We had a few people, pretending to be supporting Arsenal in this run in.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the group, but I was genuinely actually wanting Arsenal to win. I hope you know that. Really, I was not
Yeah.
at all devastated that Arsenal won at Old Trafford. At this point, we were on a hiding to nothing. It meant absolutely nothing to us, and I
Mm.
was hoping that Tottenham or someone could do something. Actually, I was speaking to Lincoln about this on now an episode that will never come out, but we were both saying that Fulham, were probably the best bet really for nicking something off Man City, and that didn't turn out to go down that route in the end. But we both kind of saw
Yeah.
Tottenham just stinking it up, so no shocks
Yeah.
for that. But yeah, ultimately you guys fall just short. Great 2024, Man United not really. We kind of just stumbled along the line. I was shocked we beat Newcastle and Brighton, to be honest. So I'm slightly pleased that we can go into the cup final off a couple of wins.
Mm.
But yeah, very very different season ends for both of us. But let's quickly touch on before we get into some key talking points. Let's quickly just give our little shout outs to our best and worst performers of our teams this season. I'll open the floor up to you, John. So who do you think have been Arsenal's standout performers this season?
I think that there's a lot of people. Obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm probably biased towards a lot of them. But I think I mean, a large part of our defense has been amazing. It's part of the reason why we've, been so hard to beat this year and been able to get into the position that we're in. Even if that is not winning the title necessarily, but I would give a large amount of the credit to people like Gabriel, Saliba, and Ben White. They've been class throughout the whole season. Gabriel obviously is always underappreciated because he's next to Saliba, who was obviously considered to be the Rolls Royce of our defense. But Gabriel's been amazing. Ben White obviously didn't start out the season all that well. Obviously, there was rumors of him holding a bit of an injury and not really being given time to let it rest and let it heal. But back end of the season, man, in 2024, he's just been amazing, right? Both on the attacking and defensive end, he's been amazing. He's been a critical part of like our set piece strategy, a critical part of a lot of the things that we do, and really made up for what has been somewhat of a lack of wing threat really this season in comparison to last. So I've got to give plaudits to all three of them. And then on top of that, Odegaard I think needs massive amounts of credit and Rice too. Odegaard particularly, I know obviously Rice has come in for a massive fee and everyone's um, was expecting a lot from him, and he actually managed to deliver on that for sure. But I just think that Odegaard really had took a major step forward this season in showing everyone that he's either on a level or very, very close to the level of a player like KDB. And I think Odegaard really shows that he is probably next in line to be the best or one of the best kind of AMs in this league. And obviously, people like Foden and Palmer have burst onto the scene kind of more in a more, I guess, like significant capacity this season as well. But I just think Odegaard has been so critical to what we do. He's been so critical to unlocking, a lot of these low block defenses that we've come up against. And I think a lot of credit needs to go to him from the attacking side because I'll be honest with you, like when you look at last season versus this season, Martinelli, Saka, Gabby Jesus, I mean, they've all been good, but they have been, in my opinion, not as good as last season, right? And I think when you look at that, how have we still managed to beat teams and score a lot of goals? I think a lot of it just kind of has to come from Odegaard and what he's been able to do. So, and I know that's a lot of names, and I'm probably missing people out, but those are really the people that I want to give most credit to. A nice little kind of dark horse, underappreciated shout also for Trossard. He came in for a low fee, didn't really get very much time to play, really didn't get that many minutes, but he's really shown up when it mattered, right? When he's got his opportunities this season, he's been nothing but clinical. So got to give a massive amount of credit to him as well, and I hope he stays. I hope we continue to be able to utilize him as this kind of half super sub, half rotational star for us, really. So yeah, that those are probably the best performers. Do you want me to get into worst performers as well?
Yeah, go on. Give it to me.
Not many to choose from, but there's really just two.
Mm.
There's really just two. Zinchenko, I think, has been, despite
Finally,
our
you're
defense
seeing the
being
light.
good. Yeah, no, despite our defense being good, he's been the weakest link of
Not
it.
to him.
Yeah,
Not
he's
to
been
him.
the weakest link of it, and there's pretty much every time he's played, he's given away chances through his, from his side, and you know, by me saying he's the worst performer of the team that finished second in the league doesn't mean that he's crap and that he's just like a really bad player, but there's a noticeable drop off between a player like White and a player like him, or any of our other defenders and him. So I've got to say, it's a position that we obviously need to strengthen. Whether it's just from playing Tomiyasu or it's from getting Kirill more in shape, I don't know what it is, but it's clear to me that Zinchenko can't continue to start for our team, and I wouldn't even want him to be a sub, to be honest with you. And then lastly, this sounds harsh, but I've got to give Nketiah a bit of a flack, because early in the season he got a lot of chances. Obviously, Gabby Jesus being relatively unreliable in fitness, Nketiah was start the season supposed to be kind of the first choice alongside of that experiment we did with Havertz in the kind of centre midfield position. That obviously did not work, and I'm not going to blame all of it on Arteta and his tinkering. I think some has to go to Nketiah, because there's been numerous chances that he had early on in the season where he skied it over the bar and missed important chances. And I'll be honest with you, like if you compare that to a Trossard, who just comes into the team as soon as he gets on the ball, he's putting away chances left, right, and centre. Man, for a player that we just gave a long contract to, Nketiah has been disappointing, and especially given what we did with Balogun as well, getting rid of Balogun and kind of choosing Nketiah over him. He's got to hold a bit of smoke for that. So those are the two that I'm going to pick out. I know that I've seen some people talking about Martinelli and all this, that, and the other, but I think people have underestimated. Martinelli hasn't been as good as last season, but he's definitely not been our worst performer. He was really cooking well before he got that massive gash in his foot that kept him out for a few weeks. And then since then, Trossard just came in and just really grabbed the opportunity by the horns. So I don't feel like he deserves to be put in that worst performer category. I feel like he did a good job. Unfortunately, Trossard has just come in and just been outstanding and kind of stolen his position for a while. So I'm not going to give any flack to Martinelli. I think that he's still a good player, still deserves to be either a starter or a rotational starter in our team. And yeah, I don't think it's all his fault that that he's not in the team. I think Trossard's just done an amazing job.
Yeah, no, I think that would be madly harsh. Obviously, if you compare Martinelli to last season, I can understand how you'd be a bit disappointed. But remember, he's a young player, and I think most like Arsenal fans with their head screwed on properly recognise that you're gonna have some ups and downs. And I don't think he was abysmal this season. I still think he's had games where he's been class. I just think you get some bad injuries, you get tricky injuries like you mentioned, and it can be hard. And like you said, Trossard, he's come up clutch when he's either featured off the bench or come in for him, especially in the back end of the season. So I wouldn't knock him. I think people just got agendas who point out Martinelli. I think there's probably maybe my only addition to that, and it feels harsh because like you said, you've probably got way more focus on your better performers. because your best performers list, you could probably add a few more people on there if you really wanted to go down that route. But maybe Jesus, not worst performer, but I think disappointment. Like I think he's like the fact that a lot of people say you might need another striker, and Havertz has had to come in and do a job there. I think
it's his
yeah,
availability over everything. And
yeah,
if we're counting that, then no, you got to put him in
yeah,
there because his availability makes it so that he just barely ever plays for us. And when he does, he's
yeah.
obviously always coming back from an injury, so he's not obviously at his peak form,
Mm.
and then he gets injured again. So
He's had some good
yeah,
games though. I remember some
yeah,
really
of
good
course.
games of him. But yeah, it's the injury, it's the consistency, it's the missing chances and stuff like that. Which like I know it's not a rod to beat him with because we know what kind of player he is, right? He's admitted himself he's not a clinical finisher. He cares about other things of his game, right? But I think at this point, whether it's shipping out Nketiah or looking to move him out to the wings, striker, I'm sure you'll tell me over the summer when we talk about this in more details, probably somewhere that you guys are going to want to fill positionally. So that's a bit of an indictment of your striking department as a whole, right? Or supporting Havertz, not rejigging the whole thing, right? But no, I agree with you. I just think Arsenal's back line, sensational. Gabriel, Saliba, White, you could have given it to any of them. And if the attacking players, Odegaard, it's not his numbers. Last season he got numbers. This season the performances just like went through the roof.
The eye test, yeah.
Yeah, he just had a slow start, which had all of us, all our tongues wagging and me asking you questions about what's going on with him. But he just answered it. The way he's performing was crazy. Like some of the, I've seen now. Obviously, you got people going overboard now. I don't know if you've seen the Havertz, the last goal you scored, and people saying, "Oh, what an assist by Odegaard," when he kind of like skimmed it. I don't know if he really meant that, but that shows you how well he's been playing. That people think it's a possibility someone could try these outrageous things, right? Like it's legit possible because he's been playing so well. All right, let's get into the United part then. It's bloody hell, this is slim pickings. It's the other way around. But I think at the end of a season, right, and people might argue this because he's had better numbers or better performances, but with some of the games he's missed, with the games he's played and the impact he's had, I still find it hard to give it to anyone other than Bruno on our team, right? We've had a shocking season. If it wasn't for Bruno, we'd have been in relegation in terms of what he's done. I'm not saying he's consistent. I'm not saying he's up there with KDB or, on the eye test with Odegaard and, flashes sometimes Maddison and stuff like that. But what's been proven is if we don't have Bruno in the team, at this moment, we can't do niche. Like there's nothing we can do from a creativity standpoint, right? You saw that Arsenal game. We had actually a lot of the ball and we actually looked all right when we had the ball, but no creativity whatsoever. And we didn't look like we would have scored for hours. And I don't think it's surprising that as soon as Bruno comes in the team, boom, chances galore, goals, and we start to play better. I don't think it's his best ever season, but I think he's created the most chances in the league. That's always his number one stat, right? Because he does the Hail Mary ball, but still it's something to show that he's being productive and creative. Goals and assists, I think he almost hit double digits on both. I think he was on like 10 goals and 8 or 9 assists. So he managed to get decent numbers off that. And without him, struggle. Beyond that, it's got to be Dallo. He's been frustrating in the last couple of weeks, giving away penalties and done stuff, but still he's come up with goals. I think early to middle part of the season, he showed a lot of improvement, both defensively and attacking. So I think he's got to be in the shout. And then obviously Mainoo's been the breakout star. Like, I don't think he's moving from that team going forward. And the England squad came out today, and there were a couple of Man U players that were missing, but there was one that I knew was going to be in there. And his name wasn't Harry Maguire, even though I knew Maguire was going to be in there. It was Mainu. And honestly, I'll be absolutely devastated if he doesn't make the final squad. I think he should be in there. I'm not advocating for him to start in the England team because my favourite midfield would be Rice, Bellingham, and Foden. But I think coming off the bench or someone who would have the cojones to start if he needed to, if there were injuries or suspensions, I would have no worries about him. He's what was it they said about Maitland-Niles when he did the penalty? He's got like as cold as a polar bear's toenail or something like that. Mainu gives me that kind of vibe. He just seems so chill and like unfazed by stuff. And we've had a Barney crazy season, and he's taken this opportunity to break out. So I've got to give him a shout out. Worst performers, undoubtedly Casemiro he's been all time smelly. Some of the stuff he's been doing over the last month or two has almost single handedly dropped us from comfortable sixth to where we were scrapping for eighth at the end.
Yeah.
Literally errors leading directly to losses. I think he's got to be high on that list league wide, which for someone who was, I know people were going overboard a bit last season, but I think he was one of the best DMs last season. Probably not the best. I think Rodri, Partey was in with a shout. Rice before he went to you guys was playing well, but he was in that combo for sure, and he was probably top 3, maybe top 5 for the drop off. And I know he's played centre back, so I'm not going to go too hard on the centre back mistakes. But when he was in DM, he was getting ghosted past too. I'm not going to forget that, right? I'm not going to act like he was a different player in DM. He was shocking as well.
Yeah.
So Casemiro's been all-time abysmal. Rashford can't get round it. Not going to go into a witch hunt. He's obviously had a hard day, not in the England squad, but he's been poor. Antony, yeah, can't say anything about that guy anymore. That brother makes me ashamed of my name, so I'm not going to talk more about that. But yeah, there's a few more that could probably get in there with not doing well. Onana had terrible spells, but I think he's pulled it together, to be honest. I still have my doubts about his technique and stuff, but I think he's probably just about saved himself from this category. Maguire's had better performances, although I still want to get him sold. I think that's probably where I can end it on that. But let's get into the questions then, John. So let's pick your brain a bit about how this season ended. Do you alter? There's so much convo going around. Which game did Arsenal lose it on? Seems to be the narrative, right? Did you lose it when you didn't try and win at the Etihad? Did you lose it at Aston Villa? Did you lose it at home to West Ham or Fulham or any of these games? Like, do you honestly think it was a title that Arsenal lost, or is it a title that City won? And if you do think Arsenal lost it, like, do you think there's one game that you can pinpoint, or is it just the accumulation of all of them?
I think, I'll be honest with you, I think it's a stupid way to look at it in terms of Arsenal lost it versus Man City won it. And the reason why I say that is because you could literally say that any team that didn't win the league and didn't go, literally 38 wins out of 38 games has lost the title, right? So it's a weird conversation to get into. Obviously, I think there are games that Arsenal should have won, and had they won them, we would be the champions based off of what happened. But the thing that you have to remember about that is, had we won that game that we apparently lost or drew or whatever it was, how do we know that Man City wouldn't have turned it on even further and made sure that they didn't lose anything or didn't draw anything against us? Maybe they would have turned up harder and turned up and played better against us and beaten us. So it's a really difficult conversation to start getting into, and I think it's weird to just look at it as if we had beaten West Ham or if we had beaten Aston Villa, we would have won the title. No, if we had beaten West Ham or if we had beaten Aston Villa, we would have ended up on slightly higher points maybe, but who's to say that we would have actually still gone on to win the title? So I think from my point of view, it's just, if the expectation now is that we have to be flawless to win a league, then I think it's a ridiculous expectation to set, because I think it's only now with Man City that expectation has been set, right? Like, obviously Liverpool fans are looking at Arsenal fans now and saying, "Oh, you lot are crying. Look at what happened to us." Ending the league on however many points, 97 or whatever it was, and still didn't win. Like, they're obviously also, it would be difficult to say to them, "Oh, yeah, you lost the title as well because you lost to whoever it was, or you drew to this team that wasn't so good." So, I think, from my point of view, Man City are very difficult to challenge. They are flawless. They push you to be absolutely flawless. They are the best team I've ever seen in a race, right? Like, the first 20, 25 games of the season, they're not always great. They there are opportunities to get, points off them. But man, in that last 18, 20 games, 15 games of the season, they're just invincible. Like, there's been a lot of talk about Bayer Leverkusen and whatever else, but like, Man City are, like, when it counts, they are really, really, really good and almost perfect. So from that point of view, like, I'm disappointed. when I'm looking at games, I'm looking more at the Villa game, really, not at the City game. I think Rodri coming out and saying that if we had been more attacking mentality wise against them, it's just absolute breeze. And that guy chats breeze constantly. Like McTominay, do you remember when Spain played against Scotland? And he was saying that they don't want to play football properly, and because McTominay beat them, I scored goals past them. And then he said it multiple times now, and it's usually in this like very elitist manner, and it really pisses me off because, brother, like your whole shtick is you're a quiet player that just goes about his business and does things really, really well. Stop yapping, man. Especially like the fact that you are facing 115 charges and you want to come out and talk about mentality when we got fought. Like we didn't lose to you. We beat you and drew against you. What are you coming out and chatting to us about that? Right? You should be worried about your mentality when you come and play us because you lost and you drew. Right? So from that point of view, I think he needs to shut the hell up. But yeah, I know that there's going to be people saying that we bottled it, this, that, and the other, but I genuinely don't see it as us bottling it. I think last season we genuinely did bottle it, right? We were in a position where we should not have lost all those games, and had we not lost all those games or drawn all those games at the end of the season, we would have ended up winning the league. This season, I think if you look at the amount of days that people were on top, it was Liverpool on top for the most amount of days. I think it was 86 days or whatever. Man City on top for 76 and us on top for like 73 or something. So from that point of view, I don't know how you can look at us and say, oh, we bottled it. No, if anybody's bottled it, Liverpool bottled it first. And then from there, like Man City just ran away with it, right? So we had points where we had points ahead of them and we were top of the league, but there was always a game in hand and there was always going to be an opportunity for them to get back ahead of us. So from that point of view, I think it's a stretch to say that we bottled it. Last season, go ahead and say what you want, we bottled it. But this season, nah, man. We tried our best. Despite, a very, very good effort from us, Man City just went ahead and just, again, showed why they've been able to win 4 Premier Leagues in a row, man.
What an entrance back to the pod, Johns. No one mentioned Rodri. No one mentioned bottled it.
No, because I'm seeing all this. I'm seeing all this rubbish. Like, no, because the idea of like, did Arsenal lose the title? Well, if we did lose the title, then you'd say that we're bottling it, right? But
no. I think they're two different things. Absolutely no chance anyone bottled it this season, right? I get the banter, but I know Liverpool were on top for slightly longer than everyone else, but I don't think they bottled it either. I think it caught up to them. And I've been saying it all season, and you thought I was trying to like stick the knife in and do the Liverpool hate. It was just, honestly, like it was clear with everyone's eyes that Klopp was wringing out as much as he could get out of those players, right? And it was going to run out at some point. With you guys, you had a shaky start, but my God, you hit your stride at the turn of the year, and it was unbelievable. And I think you've got a strong argument to say that on performances, you were probably the best team in the league. But when it comes to just knowing how to get the job done and just being unrelenting, that's what Man City do. And you said the races. I don't think they've ever lost a race. I haven't gone back and thought about it properly, but the season they lost the title, they weren't in the race. Like Liverpool snatched it away from them before they could even get in. But any other race they were in, they won. Like whether they were chasing or being chased, they just got it done. So
and what are you supposed to do when their left back starts banging in 40-yard screamers? Like,
exactly.
What am I supposed to do?
When their flops turn into wildies, what can you do in the middle of the season? Right? Like,
exactly. Their left back is marauding forward and scoring like 5 goals. Like it's unbelievable. And then you've got Foden who just turns into like prime flipping Zidane somehow. So like I don't know what are we supposed to do against that, right? Like when you look at us in 2024, right? It's like what are we supposed to do? There's no way that we can get 6 points from a game. So like,
well,
how do you battle against that, man?
Well, I've heard people talk about it, right? Like, it's completely nitpicking, right? So get rid of Bottle, get rid of lost the title, because I don't think anyone lost it. I think City just won it. They as soon as they could get things back in their hands, they didn't give it back to anyone. So I don't know if you could say that the team lost it. I think they won it in the end. But yeah, I think the obvious one was the Villa loss, just because it was avoidable. And I think I heard Declan Rice talk after the game about how those are the type of games when you're struggling, where you just need to get over the line and get a draw or whatever, and just avoid defeat. And I mean,
Yeah.
eventually that wouldn't have helped you win, right? You would have still been 1 point behind City, but yeah, I think it's just the way the game's caught up to you. You obviously have the disappointment in the Champions League, which I think also has an impact. We've got to remember, like, I know they're different competitions, but when you're playing that many games next to each other, the disappointment of losing and crashing out will affect you guys. And Villa are a good team, so maybe if you want to be a real asshole and nitpick, you could say the Villa game. But I mean, if we really want to pick out games that you've dropped points this year, it's so harsh. You've drawn a couple and lost one.
Yeah.
That's still sensational form. Just happens to be City barely dropped any points in the whole year. It's a hard one, man. The narrative and the conversation's funny, but I don't think there's any legitimacy around bottling it or you guys losing it. I think you did really well, and it was just a tough pill to swallow being that close to the title. But like I said, on the final day, there was no drama like with the Liverpool one where Villa were up two goals and City had to come back, or the QPR one and stuff like that. It was pretty much decided by Foden within the first 20 minutes, wasn't it? So what can you do, man? Let's get into the other key question on the Arsenal stuff before we analyse how shit we've been. There's been some people talking about Arteta, 5 years in the job now. And I think the nuance around this question, I think, is fair. But I think some people are saying, like, they should sack him or whatever and make it a negative thing. But I do think the question around, does Arteta need to start winning a trophy sooner or later to keep this project going on, does kind of make sense. But at the same time, I also hear it when the Arsenal fans say, he's been prioritising the league. So, we're okay with that. That's the one we want. And he's getting closer and he's been improving. But what do you think? Do you think the Arteta project goes on regardless of no trophies or next season? Or do you think he needs to grab something?
I think that I personally think that the project goes on regardless, because I think if you just look at it from a perspective of, will we get better if we get rid of him? There's so many unknowns around that. Like, who are we going to get in ahead of him? Like, if, I don't know, who's a better manager than him? Like a certified better manager than him that will be able to take the team that we've got and immediately win a Premier League, a Champions League, or those are the only two trophies I really want to see at this point. So unless it's Pep Guardiola that we're getting in, I don't really know if I want anyone else, right? Like, I respect Carlo Ancelotti is the Don, but I think he manages and is successful with a certain type of team, right? There's not a lot of other people out there that I would look at and say, you know what, I would take them to be better than him and do a better job than him. So from that perspective, I think it's clear to me that unless suddenly someone comes out as being the best manager ever and challenging in terms of like how good Pep is and how good Klopp is and stuff like that, unless somebody like that is available on the market, there is absolutely no reason why we should be getting rid of Arteta. Because as much as we haven't won a trophy, we've been the closest we've ever been in this last 20 years to winning a major trophy. And I don't want to hear it. I understand the FA Cup and the League Cup. I don't want to disrespect them, the Europa League, all of these things. But it's a mockery to say if we won an FA Cup that we're suddenly successful, right? If we come fourth next season and win an FA Cup, are we more successful than coming second? I don't know. Maybe some people would say yes, but to me, no. Because there's been this whole breeze that everyone's been talking about. Success means trophies. Says who? Like, who defined that you have to win a trophy to be successful, first of all? And then second of all, who said that the FA Cup and the League Cup are the ones that you need to win to be successful? Because as far as I remember, I don't really care who's won the most FA Cups. I think it's us, actually, that has won the most FA Cups in England. And no one's saying that we're the most successful, the most successful team. No, it's about winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. So if we're not winning them, I don't care what FA Cups you've got for me. I don't care what League Cups you've got for me. Honestly, FA Cups and League Cups are happy. They're good for me if you're like that fourth spot challenger, right? If you're the fifth spot. But like, Man City aren't celebrating about winning an FA Cup. They're not celebrating about winning a League Cup, right?
We'll see on
Liverpool
Saturday.
are. Yeah, we'll see it on Saturday. Of course, they probably will still celebrate it, but they're not going to be so happy about it that they more happy that they won the FA Cup than they won the league, right? So, and let's think about it from the opposition fans. people been mocking us for all those FA Cups that we won when we were crap, and saying, "Oh yeah, but you were 8th in the league, or you were this, that, and the other," right? Like, so what are we talking about now that he has to win an FA Cup to be successful? No, you have to win a league or a Champions League to be successful. And do I think that we're going to do that next season? I think we've got a good shot at it, for sure. But as long as Pep's there, let's be honest, he's got first dibs on that league. As long as he's there, he's got first dibs. And whoever, he has to mess it up, or somebody else has to be absolutely perfect the whole time to get it off of him. So as far as I'm aware, unless we win a league or a Champions League, I don't want to hear this stuff about trophies and success. So if I look at it next season, if we don't win the league or the Champions League next season, would I sack him? No. Because both of those things are enormously hard things to do. And this would be our third season at really challenging for it, right? Like last season, we came second, probably should have won the league, but, Champions League, nowhere to be found, obviously, right? This season, back in the Champions League, got to the quarterfinals, right? Not too bad. That's a progression. We haven't done that in a long time. And we're again second by an even closer margin. So as long as I see progression and we're getting closer and closer to winning that league, like Pep can't stay around forever. And these 115 charges are going to have to get decided at some point. So, from my point of view, I don't want to hear it about he has to win a trophy next season to stay in his job, especially if you're talking about the FA Cup and the League Cup being...
Man hates the cups.
No, but if you're talking about those two cups as being like the qualifier for him being able to keep his job, you're off your nut.
Nah, I think there's got to be nuance, right? If you win the FA Cup and you're miles off the league and the Champions League, it's not a successful season. If you're close, like you have been this year or last year, and you win an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup, then I think you've had a good season, right? Because that is still progression, because you're doing similar in terms of the league, but then you've also managed to grab something on top. But then I would even argue during the heyday of Man U and Arsenal back in those old days, and then when Chelsea came and stuff like that, if they missed out on the league and won an FA Cup, I don't think the players would say it would have been a successful season because they wanted the league or they wanted the Champions League. It just makes it sweet, slightly sweeter to come away with some, silverware, and at least your fans can remember it, or you can remember it as a player. But I think it's too binary to just go, he's got to win a trophy. Because like I said, he can win the Carabao Cup and finish 8th. And I think there would be a lot of justification for fans to want him out if he finishes 8th. You see United fans reacting to Ten Hag in 8th. So, it's a balanced combo. It's too simple to just say he's got to come away with something, otherwise he's got to go. Because you talked about it. If he leaves, you've got to change your squad. Because don't forget, these are his players that he's spent 4.5 years bringing in, and you see all these other teams mishmashing with different managers, and I think even when Ten Hag joined, he had players from Sir Alex Ferguson, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, all of those managers' players in his squad. It's not easy, man. It's going to actually disturb your progression. So I think it's a no-brainer, man. Unless he stinks it up royally, you stick with Arteta and you keep.
I'd be more worried about him leaving us than us sacking him, to be perfectly honest with you, mate. So,
yeah, I think you're probably right. Right, I think you got a fairly stable hierarchy. I think they love him. So unless someone else comes in for him, I can't see that. You guys breaking up.
Yeah.
But
let's get on. Let's get on to you lot now with your 8th. Yeah. Your 8th in the league. You've joined the club, mate. Welcome. You're part of the 8th squad now.
I can't use that on you anymore.
Well, you could still say you haven't done it twice yet, but let's see what happens next year. Saving grace. But I mean, obviously, there's been conversation around. Just forget about it. Don't come 7th. I don't want to be in the Conference League. Just let us have a fresh crack at the league and the FA Cup and League Cup and whatever else. Do you though feel upset? Would you have preferred to have come 7th and been in the Conference League? Do you feel upset that you haven't, you're not going to get to play in Europe next season? Or at least what, man? From the league specifically, you still theoretically could win the FA Cup and get into something.
Yeah. You know what? I think before these last couple of games where, it became a reality that we were going to finish 8th, I really didn't want to finish 8th. I was like, God, we've got to try and at least, scrape 6th again, 7th, make it respectable, get into the Europa. But as the last two fixtures kind of progressed and eighth was looking more and more likely, and I was hearing people talk about Conference League and all the permutations. I'm actually fine with it. I actually think eighth is the best place for us to finish, to make our board, our players, everyone just like really feel the cold hard truth of where we are as a team and as a club right now. And if we're gonna get into Europe, I do not want to touch the Conference League with a barge pole. I barely want to hit the Europa League, but at least that's got something. So if we win the cup and we get the Europa League, you know what? I'm okay with that. But if we lose, I'm happy that we're not going to be in the Conference League fighting with, Lech Poznan and all them random Ludogorets and all those guys. No offense to them, just in case I ever go to Poland or to I don't even know where Ludogorets is, but just don't beat the shit out of me when I go there. But I don't want to play you guys. I'd rather just concentrate on the domestic stuff. Also, don't forget, if you don't go into Europe, there's a genuine business case for us to shift more players because we're not going to be able to play them, right? So, and that, oh my God, that's the biggest attraction of being out of Europe. Getting rid of some absolute bozos that we have in our squad.
Could be a good negotiation tactic as well. You could say, "Hey guys, we didn't get the Champions League money or the European money this season. We can't just spend money on crazy fees for you guys now, and maybe some of the teams that you buy players from will be a bit more understanding of you not overspending for everyone."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath on that. They generally see us coming a mile away and therefore spend us over. So I still think we'll have to take it prison style, even if we don't get into Europe. But what I will say is, I think there's clauses in people's contracts that if we missed out on Europe, their wages drop. So they can hold that. They deserve that for being so poor this year. So I'm not bothered. I think the bigger question is probably what you're going to ask me next, but around Ten Hag and his job, to be honest, more than the European football stuff. I'm at peace with that.
So I mean, let's get straight into that then. I think obviously worst finish in your Premier League era history. Ten Hag seems to have, I'm going to be honest with you, he seems to have kind of rode the wave a little bit of all the negativity, obviously, after like the Crystal Palace stuff and all that, right? And it seems now that I'm hearing a lot more Man United fans saying that he should keep his job and we shouldn't get rid of people so quickly. But I want to ask you, mate, given what's happened, everything that's happened, and let's just take the FA Cup out of it, right? Let's just completely ignore that. Let's just look purely at the league and Champions League. What do you do about Ten Hag? Does he keep his job?
You know what, man? We've talked about this on and off cam, and I can't lie. There's been moments where my patience and confidence have been waning hard, and I've just gone, you know what? This is just getting too bad, too low. He's waffling too much about Arsenal in the press conferences. He's still talking too much rubbish. But at the end of the day, man, what's obvious is that this squad was built poorly, and he's got blood on his hands with that too, right? Since he's been in the job, I think he's allowed certain purchases that he shouldn't have allowed, or proactively gone for players that he shouldn't have gone for. But it is a split guilt. Like, you can't put it all on him. In terms of the style stuff, I get why people are kind of annoyed, because in the last few games, it looks like he's gone a bit more pragmatic, which has actually worked, right? Like, our performance against you guys and the two results afterwards were decent. So that's slightly frustrating. But, at the same time, my thing is, give him this one more season. His contract ends. Shake hands at the end of it, unless his last season goes unbelievably well. Shake hands at the end of it, and then let Ineos go for someone they really want that fits the style. People are saying don't waste the year. He's going to buy his players, etc. He's not going to buy his players this summer. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, if you've got a proper structure in place, then he's not going to.
They've got the structure in.
He wants.
They've got the structure. It's coming in. Wilcox is there. Ashworth is pending. Barada's coming in a few months' time. There will be no Ten Hag signings going forward. So they'll sign players and they'll get rid of players based on how they want to play. So for me, it doesn't matter if Ten Hag, this excuse that you're giving him time to like sign players that another manager won't want is not true. they'll
Yeah.
they'll keep him in, and if they don't want to keep him long term, which they'll decide probably in the first 6 months of next season, they'll start buying play. They'll have already started buying players for their future manager, their future playing style. It won't matter. So I don't care. I mean, I care if we win the FA Cup just from a fan perspective, but in terms of his job, I would keep him. Do I think they will? I don't know. There's a lot of rumblings that they're already
Tommy
looking at other people.
Tooks.
Tommy Tooks, I've heard Kieran McKenna. It's all over the shop. There's rumours about De Zerbi's obviously leaving Brighton. They're saying there's a unnamed club that have already paid his compensation and they just can't announce it yet. Could be us. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. So my answer and the real answer, the real truth are probably not the same. But I would keep him. I think you've just got to ride it out now.
Got it. And do you think? I mean, so take you out of it, take the fans out of it. Do you think if he wins the FA Cup, that changes it from a
should have no bearing? It should have no bearing.
Do you think Ineos will see that and say, okay, we're going to keep him? Do you think it actually has a tangible effect on whether he keeps his job or not?
This is going to be a boring answer, but I can't answer you, bro. I don't know, right? I don't know these Ineos man that well. Like they've only been in the door for a short amount of time. They talk the talk, but I've got a good mate of mine who's a diehard Nice fan, and he's not their biggest fan, and they've owned Nice for a while and said that you can't really trust what they say. Maybe they don't care about Nice and it was just business, and because he loves United, he might do it differently. But I don't know. So I think everything is so unknown with what they're going to do. The hires they're making look good, but they could be ruthless. And I can't lie, the way we played this season and some of the things Ten Hag has done, he hasn't helped his cause. I wouldn't blame them if they sacked him because he's been bad. I just wouldn't do it myself.
Gotcha.
But I'm not a billionaire, so there's probably a reason for that.
But I guess all right. So the last point I want to just touch on with that though is then if you keep Ten Hag next season, right? And obviously, as you say, there's going to be no more Ten Hag signings. But do you think that year of Ten Hag coaching and Ten Hag tactics, because at the end of the day, he's still the manager, right? Or are you saying, do you think he's just going to become a head coach? And my point is, do you think that 1 year is wasted of whoever they buy, with him teaching them do this, do that, the long-term manager that you get in after him is not going to want them to be learning? So do you think there's any loss from keeping him another season, or do you think it's just, we'll be able to reverse whatever wrong things he does after with the next manager?
I think that I get why this question comes up, right? And it's justified based on this season. But I think you just got to look at like Ten Hag beyond this season, and how he was playing at Ajax. Even first season, I know it wasn't perfect. It wasn't as distinguishable as maybe his time at Ajax or whatever. But you could argue that if a club, a progressive, forward-thinking club who want to play possession football, were on the market for a new manager, and this season hadn't happened with Ten Hag, he'd be on a lot of lists. Let's be honest, right? Like for that style. So I don't put it beyond him just because he's played all-time stinky football this year and it hasn't made any sense. He's at some point regularly played beautiful football. So I think you buy players to play that way. I would be shocked if he's suddenly just done like a Space Jam and he's touched the ball and lost all of his powers and now he's just suddenly someone who doesn't know how to do it. I think he does. And I would be seriously disappointed if he can't work within that structure. Because also the whole thing is that Ajax, he had Overmars, he had Van der Sar, he had a structure. It wasn't like he was the overlord. It was almost like he put that in his clause for Man United because he knew how shambolic we were. But if we get the right people in, I'm sorry, he's got to fall in line and just do the head coach job that he was doing before. And he's done well. And who knows, man, he might surprise people next season if he does that. But maybe I'm just being too pie in the sky. I don't know.
Well, all right. I'm gonna do last question before we get into kind of the next segment, and this is
man's adding questions.
No, so I just want to ask you one last thing, which is like player management and his relationship with players, right? Like you've obviously seen, things happen with various different players at this point. Some being the players' fault clearly, and some being maybe the club's fault. Some being maybe a little bit of Ten Hag's style of management. Do you think there's any negative effect that comes from keeping him around in that regard, right? Because obviously there's a lot of players in your team right now that are obviously going to leave, and you'd obviously want to get rid of all the ones that are, kind of unsettled. If this was Football Manager, they'd have the little UNH next to their name. They're not very happy right now. But do you think there's any possibility or any threat or risk of him staying around and making some other people unhappy that you might want to keep more long term? Think of
Yeah,
like
I mean,
Alessandro and an Onana, those kinds of players that you actually probably do want to keep around for a bit longer.
yeah, I mean, there's a possibility, but I wouldn't include those guys in that crowd. I think there's obviously a possibility he's going to rub some more players the wrong way, but there seems to be kind of a bit of a trend within those players. I think the only outlier was Varane, but now it seems more and more like the club were kind of trying to force him out because of his wage packet, and probably Ten Hag had to get involved as a club man to kind of ruffle his feathers. But the others, Martial, people, I love him, but managers have complained about his attitude before. Rashford, I'm pretty sure has been complained about by certain managers as well, but hasn't been named because he's been protected in the media until now. Sancho, yeah, less said about him, the better. I mean,
what about the Garnacho, the young player, probably going to be one of your new young stars alongside Højlund, Ahmad, and Mainu. He's obviously been liking some tweets that he probably shouldn't have been liking.
Yeah, but I mean, and this might be being too negative ahead of like creating a storm before it's occurred. But there's been rumblings and stuff about Garnacho's dream is to play for Real Madrid, and some things that have been out there. I don't know if we'll have Garnacho for him. He's not a United boy, right? Like I know he's played in a couple of years in our academy, and he'll probably be really grateful to us for giving him the opportunity. But I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that he at some point does really well and then wants to leave. So, I mean, I'd be sad, but you know what? At this point, you've just got to back the manager, back the structure. And of course, he's made mistakes. I'm not saying that Ten Hag hasn't brought some of these things on himself or dealt with things maybe in clearly what's being proven with hindsight to be the wrong way. But you've got to let him have his squad. We said it just now about the Arteta thing. And, if he leaves, who do you bring in? You've got to give him his squad. And a lot of these players aren't his squad. Once he gets all his squad ready, and if we're still stinking it up, then I hear it. And if he does, honestly, if he fights with Lissandro or Nana and these guys that are clearly his warriors, that also show a really strong mentality, then I think that's his final nail in the coffin. But some other more kind of volatile players, I think it's inevitable, right? He's come in and talked about trying to create standards and not let people get away with things that we've let them get away with before. So I think it's inevitable you're going to have these happen every season.
Yeah.
So I don't really. I mean, it's not a good look, but I don't think that should really determine what goes on. Unless you have like a full-scale players' revolt and they all say F Ten Hag, then I think that's a worry. But if it's a few dons on the side, I think that's happened, right? Like we've all had teachers or managers at work, and they don't get along with everyone, but they can still do an effective job. So it's just about performances, really. All right, Johns, let's get into the next segment then. Let's do our special segment of this episode and do our Premier League team of the season and also a special little bonus rookie team of the season as well, which for clarification, to be selected in the rookie team of the season, you can't have played in the Premier League before. So obviously that's going to be new signings coming from outside the league, youngsters, potentially players coming from promoted teams as well. So that should be interesting. But let's get into in terms of who we think have been the best 11 for their respective clubs. We'll start with goalkeeper. I am going to go first, and I'm going to pick someone who I think you might argue with, but I think for his contribution to the team, he's high up in most of the stats for goalkeeping skills and for performance as a goalie. But I'm going to pick Emi Martinez for Aston Villa. Some would argue, I think, Raya won the Golden Glove, didn't he?
He did.
So I guess some people could argue Raya. Um, who else is up there? Jordan Pickford's been getting a lot of plaudits for Everton, as much as we make fun of him. I think he's had generally a pretty good season. And then I
But
think you've
Leno's
got to
had
throw.
somewhat of a renaissance as well for Fulham. He's been really good.
You know what? Bert Leno is probably one of the most consistent goalies out there. He has been like for the last couple of years since he's been there. I remember looking
Yeah.
at the stats last season, and he was high up on all the stats then as well. So he's doing well, but it's typical Fulham, isn't it? We don't really pay much. No offense to them or anything, but like they're a very inoffensive club, but they kind of just float under the radar, and it's actually probably a good thing for them, right? Because they're normally have been a bit of a yo-yo club in years gone by. But no, Leno deserves an honourable shout out. But I'm going to go for Emi Martinez. I think he's done really well. He's probably one of the top 5 goalies, maybe even top 3 goalies in the league. Helped Villa get into the Champions League. And like I said, he's pretty high up in all the stats categories for goalies. So I'm going to go for him. Who are you going to go for?
I'm also going for Emi Martinez, actually, funnily enough.
Okay.
Personal reasons aside, he's been, we've got to put a bit more respect on his name generally, right? Villa have been
just because
one of the stars of this. Yeah, exactly. It is of course that reason why. So it makes it hard for people that are not Aston Villa fans to like him, but you got to respect him. He's kind of somewhat of a throwback in terms of goalkeepers as well, especially in the day and age where we're looking for goalkeepers to be able to pass it and bloody do Rabonas, this, that, and the other. He's kind of more of a throwback to the old type of goalkeeper where he's just a big, massive lump and very good at saving and really commands his box. So you've got to look at Aston Villa. They've not necessarily overachieved this season, but they've definitely been one of the stars of the season in terms of being better than people thought they might be. And I think he's definitely a big reason for that. And I think also you've got to just look at like the big 6 goalkeepers who you traditionally have as probably one of the candidates for team of the season. No one's really stood out that much, right? Like you talked about Raya. He's been all right, but he definitely hasn't been the best goalkeeper in the league. And I mean, the Golden Glove thing, kind of like last season, the same way we were talking about Man United, right? Having the Golden Glove and me kind of saying, what does it really matter if your goalkeeper's actually not that good? And I'm going to keep the same energy. I don't think Raya getting the Golden Glove really makes him the best goalkeeper in the league. So you look at that. Alisson barely played. Edison doesn't really need to do anything, if we're honest, from a real goalkeeping standpoint. Chelsea, Petrovic has been decent, but I don't think he's anywhere near being able to be given anything like that. Vicario's been good, but dropped off quite a lot at the back end of the season, and their defense has just been shoddy generally. So it's hard to really say a goalkeeper that's probably letting a ton of goals is a candidate there. So I think if you look at the goalkeepers you traditionally probably have as your big, your candidates, they haven't really impressed that much. So I think Emi's kind of a shoe-in for it.
Yeah. I think because of the injury to Alisson, it's kind of opened the door for him. I think otherwise it would probably be Alisson. Probably default Alisson every season otherwise.
Pretty much.
But no, the Raya point's a good one. I think the Golden Glove thing, that should be a team award. Like that
Exactly.
That should be for your defense as a whole.
Agreed.
Your Raya getting that many clean sheets should be divvied out to your defenders in front of him. As much as he's improved, I don't think it's purely down to him. So okay, cool, good to see we're in agreement already. Let's see if this continues. Let's go right back then.
I think we're going to be agreement here as well, mate.
Yeah, I feel like in defence we'll probably get the most agreement, and maybe until we get to left back. But yeah, I'm going to ruin the surprise then and go through a couple of positions in a row because I think this will go quickly. I'm going to go Ben White right back, and then Gabriel and Saliba in defence. I think those 3 positions are no-brainers. I think unless you're a big Arsenal hater, I can't see how you can disagree with those 3 as a trio, because I just think they work so well together. Best defence in the league.
Yeah, I've got the exact same right back and centre back pairing, but I mean, like, just out of interest, who would you have had as maybe the runners up to that award? Who do you think deserves an honourable mention in some of those positions?
I think centre backs you could probably chuck Van Dijk in. I think he's been back to his best or close to his best, so I think he deserves a shout out. But I just think he's been kind of screwed by not having a regular partner next to him. But even then, I don't know, man. That Gabriel and Saliba is just like prime time defensive partnership. It's given a real. They're both individually really good, but as a duo, it's Teflon. So I don't know if I don't even think prime Van Dijk with any of his partners as a duo reached that level. I think Van Dijk's individual level was super high for like 2 or 3 seasons, but Matip was good, Kanate been good, but I think there's a lot of extra gas. He's been a bit shite recently, to be honest. So it's mostly been Van Dijk, isn't it? So I think other honourable mentions. I'm trying to think who's been good centre back wise.
As much as it pains me to say, Van der Ven's been all right. Tottenham
Van der
defense
Ven's
is shoddy, but he's been good.
Yeah,
he's had some really terrible moments where he's been getting twisted up and
ones.
putting roly-polies and that, but other than that, he's been good.
Yeah, I think his level's been good, but some of the bad performances were all-time stinky, so it's hard. I think you can bring him up. I think he's had a really good first season, and he's a really good combo with Romero. I don't think it gets in the realm of Gabriel and Saliba, but I think he's had a pretty good season. I'm trying to think what other standout defenders they've been, and I'm really talking top
maybe?
level. I'm not talking. Yeah, Branthwaite's been good. Everton overall have had a pretty good defence. Branthwaite and Tarkowski have made a good combo, but even Branthwaite, we talked about Van der Ven getting twisted up. Haaland twisted up Branthwaite into a pretzel a couple of times as well. I mean, we're talking about top strikers, right? So it's no shame.
Yeah.
Isak was the one who did it to Van der Ven, another top striker. So it's no shame in it. But those moments are just hard to recover from. It's kind of like when Van Dijk got put on his arse by Perisic. It's difficult in that season to kind of forget those moments. And I just feel like Arsenal have just been clear defensively. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even City overall as a team have been good, but I don't know if defensively they've been that good. I mean, they'd probably want to throw like Stones and Diaz and Ake and Kanji in there.
Can't put Stones in there. He plays 20 games a year, man. He's not getting in there. I know. Jog it on.
I know that argument. And when he does play, he kind of plays more like a DM anyway. So I don't know how much defensive work he actually does. But no, I put like Ake, Kanji, Diaz in as more like a combination. But I don't think as a pair or any of them have done outstanding or anywhere near what those Arsenal lads have done.
Someone that's been good, but his team's not been good from a defensive standpoint has been Fabian Schär.
He's pretty solid,
decent
man,
this year. Yeah,
but I think I like Botman better as a player, but he's been injured more and everything. And I think Schär's come in with some big goals, so maybe attacking wise he's done well. But as a defender, I'm not sure. I don't know how much depth we have as a league around that centre back position. I just think there's a couple of standout guys who just are head and shoulders above the rest. Right back is interesting. I'm trying to think who's been a good right back. I think Delow's been good. Porro's been good. Delow's been good, but they haven't been as good as Ben White. Gusto is an honourable mention. I think he's done really well in Reece James's absence. Probably one of their only good signings, to be honest, considering Chelsea's absolute shambolic transfers. And we just heard that Pochettino's been sacked, which feels a bit harsh considering they're into the season, but that's a Looney Tune house, isn't it? So let me think. Who else has been? Trippier's been so disappointing. Honestly, I think
Trippier's been absolutely balls.
When we do our awards of the season next week after the FA Cup final, spoiler alert, Trippier's going to get a mention because he's been absolutely horrendous since he started cussing out that fan. He's just absolutely fallen off a cliff. Shocking.
Yeah.
But right back. I think Porro and White are probably the best two that have been in the league this season. And I think White's been better. Let's go to left back then. If you've got the same so far, we're 4 for 4. My left back, you might argue with, to be honest, and it's a little bit prisoner of the moment. Sensational beard. Does not look as young as he is. plays for the wrong half of Manchester, but I'm going to go for Josko Gvardiol. He started stinky, I will admit. If I made
Yeah.
this choice after the first few months, yeah, I don't know if we'd have the ability to keep the podcast going because he was bad.
Yeah.
But he's been so good, so good in the last 2 or 3 months. I feel like it kind of outweighs the shot he's been. I think he's scored. You said it earlier in the pod. He's scoring thunderbolts and right foot volleys and all kinds of shit, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, he cost 90 million, so fair enough. But
yeah,
unbelievable.
That is, you can't overlook that. To be fair, though, like a 90 million defender, you better be bloody smashing thunderbolts in from the halfway line. Yeah,
but it's the investment angle, isn't it? 90 million, and you could have him for 10 years because he's like 21. True. I don't know if I believe that, by the way, for the way he looks, but he's 21, mate. So you can have him. Yeah, it's 9,000 a year, 9 million a year. That's great. So I'm also left back's so hard because there just haven't been that many.
There's not that many good ones.
But yeah, I'm gonna go with him. What about you?
I mean, I'm also going for Guardiola. I might be a prisoner at the moment, but it's also just there's been a lack of like real good left backs. I do want to give a shout out though to Aït-Nouri because Ryan Aït-Nouri's been class. But just I think Wolves have had a bit of a drop off back end of the season. They haven't been quite as good as they were kind of the beginning. But I think he definitely deserves a shout out.
Not
exactly.
They've been fighting the PGMOL, not the other teams.
Exactly, it's been a disgracia for them, so I understand. Don't worry. But yeah, no, I think Aït-Nouri's been really, really good. Outside of that, Tariq Mitchell for Palace has been good, but I don't think I can justify putting any of them in ahead of the guy that's just won the Premier League and been slapping goals in left, right, and centre from the left back position. Even though, as you say, I thought he was going to be just like a destroyer of some sort, given what he looks like. But no, he appears to be very, very techie, which is bothering me because it's just another addition to that bloody team. Can we please get some terrible signings in there? Please.
Even their warriors are like finesse dons. It's actually irritating. But no, I hear it, man. I just think people might think we're prisoners at the moment, and I'll accept it. I'll take the bid. But he's been so good. I just find it hard to not slot him in, and especially like you said, considering the other options we're talking about are playing for like middle of the table clubs. Their impact's been good. I think it's hard to look at anyone other than Gvardiol. I mean, this is not going to do well for clipping because if we're just saying the same people all the time, and I think we're probably going to do the same in midfield. I've gone for 2 CMs and one cam, and my 2 CMs are Rodri and Rice. I think it's a no-brainer, and I expect you to have picked the same people, haven't you?
I haven't.
Oh no!
So
is this because of what Rodri said?
No, it's not. It's not. But he's not in it. So
it is. You cheat.
It's not. It's because I'm trying to force other people in, and I don't know if you're going to accept this, but I'm having a real struggle with the 2 English lads that have won Young Player and Player of the Year, and trying to both fit them in while also fitting in other players. So I've gone for Rice and Foden in the centre mid position. And I know you're probably going to argue that Foden's not really a centre mid, but this season he has actually had to play there. And they've been moving people around with Bernardo and all this other stuff. So I'm going to stick Foden next to Rice. I think Rice, I don't need to explain. Rice has
got his work cut out. Rice has got his
Well, no, because everyone's going to say, oh, Rodri, Rodri's got the best win percentage, this, that, and the other. But, like, what does that actually mean, right? Like, he's not...
he's rattled you so much.
No, at the end of the season, like, I understand last season, like, remember, he was coming in with really clutch goals and slapping goals in the Champions League and this, that, and the other, and I get it. He was, like, along with Gundogan, like, really picking up that team at the end of the season. But I don't think you can say that about him this season, right? I think he's obviously been still a world-class defensive midfielder for Man City, right? That's clear. But my point is, he has not shone in that team the same way I think other players have. And I think if you compare it to the impact that Rice has had on the Arsenal team, compare us last season to this season, and just look at Partey and where he's been, and look at what Rice has been able to do in our team, and how much we've changed in terms of like that defensive grit and just like that kind of like that bottle that I think we didn't have last season. I think Rice has been critical to that. So from the perspective of like impact to the team, I think Rice has been more important to us than Rodri has been to City. And then it becomes a question of, do I choose Rodri or Foden? And I think Foden has had a bigger impact on that team. And it's just because of the people I'm trying to force in. I know Foden, his best position isn't a centre mid, but sorry, Rodri, mate. I'm going. If I've got Gabriel and Saliba behind him, I don't need you, mate. You can jog it on.
Oh my God, he's rattled you so hard. And I kind of get what you're saying. Rice has been, just for the want of seeing new faces and giving new people credit as well. I think what Rice has done is stepped up to a level that we didn't know he could, because he's been playing, no offense to West Ham, but it's a lower level than Arsenal. And he's taken to it like a duck in the water. So I get it. I don't know. It's hard to say who's more important to their teams, because Rodri's got that stat out there. You know, when he misses, when he's not in the team, they lose or draw. You know, they're a little bit more flaky, and when he's there, they just don't lose. So, but I get it. Rice's impact on your team has been amazing, and the fact that you've missed Partey for the majority of it. He's been playing next to Jorginho, who respectfully is a good player, but he hasn't really got legs, right? And he's kind of doing a bit of a babysit job with him. He's done amazing. So I get it. That's why I'd go for them both. But I hear you. It's your team. You're allowed to put Foden in. But I'm interested to see who you're trying to squeeze in everywhere. Because I've done squeezing myself, and I still managed to find a way to get Rodri and Rice in. But I may be missing someone glaringly who you're gonna tell me off about. But all right, let's go to left wing. Yeah, let's go left wing. So this is where you might look at me sideways, like I've done with Foden. I'm gonna put Ollie Watkins left wing, and I'm gonna play him as a left forward. As a left forward.
Are you doing the, what is this? Is this the Shearer team of the season where he just puts 3 strikers in?
No, but
he's putting Harry Kane right wing. Yeah, is that what we're doing now? Yeah.
No, that was wasn't it the Ben Foster one where he played like 4 strikers?
Ben Foster. Sorry, yeah, Ben Foster. Sorry, Alan.
No. But remember, Ollie Watkins. I know he's been predominantly a striker this season, and I can play around with this and maybe play 2 strikers and move around my other players. But I'm going to keep it fluid with him, because he can play left. He can play left forward, kind of cutting in a la, Mane, Rashford type, from the right wing, left wing, cutting in kind of inside forward style, and just put him in there, because his assist stats are crazy. Isn't he the top assister? So it's not like wild to put him as a also a bit of a provider, because not only has he scored, he's set up a ton of goals. So and I had to try and get a bit more Villa love in there. Good evening and all that, and I think he's been.
Well, it's because it's harsh to Douglas Luiz that he hasn't been able to get in as a centre mid, because he's been really, really good this season as well. I mean, even John McGinn, I know he's obviously jokes about him and this, that, and the other, but I mean, like, they've been really good. There's really good players in that team. They're just not getting in to that team of the season, and obviously, Douglas Luiz has been the
Douglas Luiz is a good shout. Yeah, Douglas Luiz is a good shout in their midfield. I like McGinn; he's decent, but Douglas Luiz is the one who's just had them purring. But now, when you've got Rice and Rodri, you can't consider him. He's not on that level. He's done well, but he's a level below that. And Watkins has just been. I don't know what. Did you see that thing? Leon Bailey was trying to cuss him out the other game, and I was like, "Shut up, man." Watkins has
Leon Bailey
scored
just
so many goals.
Down in general. I'm starting to hate him as much as you do.
Yeah, I told you, mate. He's going out and beat this out. He's a big old mate. And imagine Watkins is like your bagsman, your top assister, and you've strayed offside. Disgrace. So Ollie Watkins, I loved it because you just kind of ignored him at the time, and I was like, well done, mate. Give him an uppercut when you get into the changing rooms. But he left wing. Some people might think I'm being cheeky, but we can move things around. Who are you going to go for left wing?
All right, I've got to go Gordon, man. Newcastle have stank it up, but Gordon has been.
That's a good shot.
So much better than I thought he was going to be, and has really been a massive player for that team. Yeah, we both thought he absolutely stank it up, and when we saw that transfer fee, we're thinking you've been robbed. But in the same way that Arsenal talk about Rice and West Ham, Gordon, you might have to go back to Everton and give him a bit more money, Newcastle, because he's actually been pretty good for you. And it's been a team that hasn't been as good as they probably expected to be based off of last season. But I think he's been a critical part, alongside of Ishak, has been a critical part of that team being good. So I've got to give him some plaudits, as much as I don't really like him that much. But yeah, Gordon's my left winger. For the left wing position, obviously outside of Gordon and Ollie Watkins, who do you think some honourable mentions might be in that category?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I'm not really sure who we can really call out, because it seems like a lot of traditional left wingers have moved over to striker. So you could have said Son and stuff like that, like in previous seasons, or you've got people like Mateus Cunha and Juan Hee-chan and stuff like that who've been kind of left wingers / strikers and floated about. But probably Trossard
like as well.
Yeah, Trossard
has been moving around. Yeah.
Trossard's a decent one because he's come up quite clutch. I mean, it just shows like what a miss it's been to not have Martinelli playing regularly for you guys, and then also, City going with Doku and him having up and down season. No Grealish, again, no Rashford, been poor. Yeah, it's been not a great season for the left wingers / left inside forwards. So you probably got the best option on your team, to be honest, if we're being really, correct with the left winger position, and I've tried to be cheeky. So there's not there's not many other options, I'll be real. Do you want to go Cam then, or do you want to go right winger next?
Maybe let's stick with the right winger. I think let's stick with the wingers now, and let's go right wing. Who have you got?
All right, I've got Cole Palmer.
Interesting.
He's a hard one because he kind of floats from the right wing and plays very centrally. But I looked at some stats around his starting positions and in most of the fixtures that he's played, and he generally always starts from the right and then comes in. What a season! Did not see it coming. There were glimpses, because I think he score for City in the Charity Shield, Community Shield against you guys. He curled one in. He scored in the European Super Cup. I think it was a header as well, or it was like a pretty crucial goal. And it just, I definitely didn't see this coming. But I thought, you know what, this guy's on for a short period of time. He's had an impact every time. They're losing Mahrez. This is a bit of a risky one. But I did not see him doing what he's done. So fair dues to him. He's had an absolute blinding first season. It'll be interesting to see what's like next season when teams start to like prepare for him more, and he gets into that second season, and people are going to double up on him and do all kinds of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do it again. But you can't leave him out of this team. Did he win Young Player? Did you say earlier?
He won Young Player of the Season, and Foden won Player.
Yeah, so that's fair. I'll put him right wing. What about you?
Saka, mate. I've continued with Saka because, again, not as good as last season, but still I think the best actual out and out winger, like right winger, that we've got in the league, right? And again, we've gone about this in a different way, because you've got a striker at left wing and you've got what I consider to be a Cam at right wing. So I've gone for Saka. I do think there are a couple of people that deserve like honourable mentions. I think Elise, had he played more games, he could be in with a shout of having this as well, because he's been absolutely mental for them in the amount of games that he's played.
Coming to United, mate.
Oh God, nah, mate. He needs to give Glasner. He needs to give Glasner a bit of a go. They probably finish above you next season anyway.
They might, but not when he comes to us.
I think Moussa Diaby's been kind of on and off. He looked really good at the beginning, but kind of fell off a little bit, and he's been fighting for his position with Leon Bailey, who's also been really good. I mean, I don't know what you're considering Jared Bowen to be. He might deserve an honourable mention because he can play on that right wing and kind of cut in onto the left foot. But I'm sticking with Saka. I'm sticking with the star boy, little Chile. He's got his Nando sauce now. Can't forget about that as well. So, been a very critical part of our team. Even though as I said earlier, I think Odegaard's really been the key star point of that attack. I still think Saka is indispensable for our team, and I think if it's not going to be a player from City, then it's got to be little Chile.
I didn't see that coming. I thought you'd be more unbiased, but I hear it. Performances wise, not the
It's
greatest
biased, I don't
season
care.
from Saka, but
Yeah.
stats wise, even then, he's come up big in some big games. Maybe they weren't as pivotal, or they weren't as like kind of wow factor as they were maybe last season, but he still had a very good season. So it's not a shocker, but you've definitely been
Yeah, and
cheeky.
he doesn't take all of our penalties as well, so just keep that in mind.
We're back to this. All right, let's go Cam then. So yeah, I've gone. You went big chili or little chili. I've gone big Philly. So I've gone Phil Foden at Cam. No brainer.
Understood. Yeah.
Player of the season, bending goals in from all angles against every team you could think of and all big stages. That game he played against us at the Etihad, we were packed. We were sitting in. We were packed in. We were ready to real house it, Jose Mourinho style, and he did us. He unpicked the lock by himself. And I think I saw some stuff about that being like the performance of the season, individual performance of the season. Can't argue. I didn't even think we played that badly, but he really showed up big time. So I don't think you can look anywhere other than Foden. And that's the flexibility of my team, though, because I could actually move him to left wing and then play 4-4-2 because, Watkins and my other striker up front. But Phil Foden, fair dues, man. Hats off. I think he's actually stepped up to the plate. I don't like all this chat about 6 titles, and he's only 23 because about 3 of them he barely played. But this one is the one that is a stamp of approval, and I think he'll just keep going on from here. I think the only threat to him not kicking on from here is if he gets like a bit cocky. But I think with Pep there's no chance of that. But I mean, after Pep leaves, you might not continue to see the same thing depending on who comes in. But I think this is probably we might be prisoners of the moment again. But this is the most stonewall, I think, player we could have in this 11. But you've already got him in. So who are you going to put Cam then?
Yeah, I mean, like, I just one last thing I'll say on Foden as well is like, as much as there's been chat about like Foden versus Saka, I think obviously after that conversation, he just kicked it up a further notch and is kind of making it a much harder conversation for even me as a biased Arsenal fan to have. But one thing you got to say about Foden is he's one of those players that like you don't see very often, but an English player that you could say you could put him in any team in the world, even the techiest teams of the Spanish league or whatever else. I feel like he'd walk into any single one of them. Based off of how he played this season as well, like I could see him at like a prime Barca type of thing. I could see him at like a Real type, and that's probably the biggest compliment I can give him because it's not often that you see, a real star of the English league, especially an English player itself, being touted in that kind of way. So technically, just different gravy, and he's really stepped up this season. He's, I used to think he just used to pass it into the back of the net. That was kind of the Foden way of doing it. You do that Odegaard style of just passing it into the corner, and that's how he'd score. But this season, he's been slapping it top corner every 5 minutes, and kind of showing a part of his game that I didn't really know he had. So, big plaudits to him. Obviously, deserves the player of the season. So, big up on him. I've gone for Palmer at attacking mid because I know that, as you say, obviously he starts more from a right position and floats in as a left footer, but where I think he does the most damage is in a more central position. And
definitely.
I don't know, whether he'd start where, but like having him in there kind of floating in from the right hand side in the same way that Odegaard does with Saka could work really, really well. The added benefit is obviously that Palmer seems to have nerves of steel as well, which just makes him. He's the reason why Chelsea finished where they finished, man. Because without him, that team absolutely stinks, even more than it did previously, right? And he's really dragged them up by the scruff of their neck to get into the position that they're in and be able to be in Europe next season. So, unbelievable. Yeah, he definitely also deserves Young Player of the Season as well. So, I mean, honourable mentions, I've got to say Odegaard.
I was going to say
Odegaard deserves something there.
You've chosen biased in one position and then unbiased in another one. It's interesting.
What? So you want me to like swap Foden, swap Saka for Palmer, and then swap
No, I don't want you
that
to do
centre
anything.
mid position
But
to Odegaard, or what? Were you
yeah,
talking?
I don't want you to do anything. But it's just interesting because when we're talking about the best Arsenal players earlier, you mentioned Odegaard, right? Like I can't remember. Maybe you did mention Saka, but you didn't. I don't think you did. And I could see the argument for that maybe stronger than the Saka one. But I mean, positionally, you're right. Like if we go strictly on positions, you're not really moving players around, right? You're not.
Yeah,
You go and buy their best position, but I think Odegaard has been your best attacking player this season, and
agreed.
so yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely honourable mention. I was tempted. I was very
Yeah.
tempted, but yeah, Foden kind of
I
made
think
it
if we'd won the
undeniable
Premier
last
League,
couple of seasons.
I'd have him in there. If we'd won it on that last day, I'd have him in there. But just it's difficult, man. It's difficult to put him in there. He's obviously been carrying us, but we haven't managed to get over the line. Whereas Saka, I think, I'm also trying to do this off of who I think is continuously always like really good. I'm trying not to be too prisoner of the moment, and I think Saka has been playing pretty much every single game apart from this last one, and got good numbers. Been a big part of the reason why we've managed to get to the position that we're in. So I've got to give him and continue to give him props. And I just think, yeah, from like a winger perspective, I think
Yeah,
he's
you've
a
got
true
proper
winger.
wingers.
Yeah,
I'll be real. You've got proper wingers. Gordon and Saka are winger wingers. It'll
yeah.
be interesting. You've kind of gone prime City really because you should have Foden and Palmer both as cams and just have Rice as the one sitter
Oh, I could
because
do that. Yeah.
that would absolutely cook, to be honest. But yeah, you'd put a lot of with your defense, you probably could pull it off. But yeah, all right, let's go to centre forward then. This will be interesting. So I'll go first as I have been, and I'm gonna pick probably someone you'd be interested in buying.
Ooh, I know who it
So
is.
I've gone for uh, Northwest London's finest Swedish Somalian, and I've gone with Alexander Isak. Um, what a season! Like I just feel like this season, like there were glimpses. Like in last
Yeah.
season, he had quite a few injuries, didn't he? And there's been glimpses when he was at Sociedad. He was bought by Dortmund earlier because they saw something in him, and they don't often get young players wrong, do they? So what
True.
he's done this season, oh my god, he's too good for Newcastle. I've said it, right? Get out of there, mate. I would not be angry at you if you went to Arsenal. I'd love you to come to United, but yeah, I would not be angry if you went somewhere else. It'd be really hard to get him out. They're going to want over north of 100 million, I reckon. So it'd
Yeah.
be a tough one. But I think for any club out there looking to try and get a striker, and you're tempted, think you might have a chance to prize one away, I honestly think he's probably the best striker in the Prem. If you're talking about like as an actual football player, Haaland
Yeah.
as a goal machine, no problem, right? Like I can accept anyone saying that. It kind of feels crazy not to pick him, considering the goals he scored, even though he's missed a couple of months of football. But just preference, and the difference is 6 goals. To play the way I'd want to see football played, I'd sacrifice the 6 goals to have Isak
Mm.
over Haaland. I just think he's just. People go a bit far and say that Henri regen. I don't think he's an Henri regen, but like the close control, finishing, when he goes 1-on-1, you just don't think he's going to miss. And like,
Yeah.
I know people say that about a lot of strikers, but genuinely with him, I'm shocked if he ever misses a chance when he's 1-on-1. So yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned it earlier, what he did to Mickey van der Ven. I was about to call him Vicky van der Men.
Vicky
Wow,
van der Men.
he, he turned him into Vicky van der Men. He was twerking all over the shop, like screaming as he was falling on his ass. It was disgusting. Like, there were some Phil Jones memes out there for years, right? Like a lot of people
Yeah.
twisted him up all over the shop. But that Van der Ven one, oh my god, it was. I don't even hate Tottenham that much, and I really like him as a player. But God Almighty, how he's managed to still show his face in football grounds after that. It's Isak, yeah, disgusting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to go for Isak up front. What about you?
It's an interesting one. I've gone for Watkins just because of like the total package that he offers, and again,
Mm.
it's not a slight on Haaland. I think, as you said, he's a goal machine, right? If I wanted an absolute bagsman that is just going to put balls in from the same position over and over again,
Pause.
and I was trying to build a City-like team, then fair enough. From balance, I probably would choose him, right? But if we have to really give plaudits to players I think who've been consistently really, really good week in, week out, and availability-wise always been there, again, for a team that's massively overachieved, in my opinion, I think Watkins deserves a shout out, right? Like he's 28, I think 28, 29, built up from like lower league type teams, like lower table teams, and managed to get himself now into a really good Aston Villa team. As you can see from his stats, not just a goal machine, man, but he's an assist machine as well, right? Like he's really helping out in that team. And I think in a way is everything I would want Gabby Jesus to be in terms of like output. And so the Watkins, I think he just deserves plaudits. I think obviously my big thing about Isak is like you could take Isak and I think you could put him in any position of the pitch with the ball and I think he could score. Like he could literally run past anybody you need him to run past and he will score. And I think another big thing about him is out of Haaland, Watkins and Isak, I have not seen Isak get tied up by anyone. I've seen
No.
Haaland get pocketed multiple times by my defenders. I've seen Watkins kind of go missing in certain games. I've never seen anyone be able to deal with Isak. And that is the biggest kind of compliment I've got to give him, because if he can stay fit and he can play every game of the season, I don't see a defender locking him up, man. Like when I see him go up against Saliba and Gabriel, I think he's got all the tools that he needs to actually to deal with them, which is again a massive compliment because they've been amazing this season. So, in spite of all of that, the main reason I've chosen Watkins over him is just because Watkins is a fixture of that team, and I think his overall team has performed better than Newcastle have. So, overall output, consistency, availability, overperforming team, I've got to go with Watkins just because, yeah, man. Like, and also he's a perfect professional. Like, you mentioned it about Leon Bailey chatting breeze to him. He just ignores it and gets on with the game. And I think it's nice to see that again in the game. And I want a team of hard workers, man. So I'm going for Ollie Watkins. Hope he goes to the Euros as well.
Oh yeah, he's on the plane. I mean,
You never know with Southgate.
Southgate deserves slaps for a lot of reasons, but if he does that, that will be all time disgusting.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's conversation for another pod. We'll talk about the England squad next week's pod. But yeah, no, shocking. No Haaland then. Wow. Okay. I'm definitely. We're both going to get blamed for the Man City bias, but there's City players in there. I mean, you've left out Rodri, so I don't know. You're probably going to hold it a bit more, but we've got Gvardiol in there. You've got Foden in there.
Yeah, I've got two. It's enough.
from a league winning side. Oh god. All right, let's go on to the rookie team of the season then. So just to introduce the rules again and the caveats. Can't have played in the Premier League before. So basically we're looking at young players, brand new signings from outside England or outside the Premier League, and most likely promoted players from promoted teams. All right, let's start with goalie then. You can go first on this one then, because I was going first on all of the other ones. Who's your goalie?
This has been a struggle. So I've gone for Vicario. He counts, right?
He does, yeah, he does.
Yeah, I've gone for Vicario. He was looking real good at the beginning of the season. I still think he's a pretty good goalkeeper. There is something a bit flappy about him.
He's very
which I don't
flappy,
like.
Yeah.
But he does pull off some really, really good saves. And I mean, he's been under the absolute cosh, right? We talk about Man United giving up a lot of bloody shots every game. Tottenham give up a lot of goals and a lot of shots, and he does his absolute best to keep them out. So, Vicario, mate, you've done a good job, despite being a Tottenham player. I'll give you props. You're a rookie of the season goalkeeper for me, mate.
Yeah, you know what? I originally had Vicario in there, but I'm making a late, transfer deadline day swap, and I'm gonna pick my goalie.
Wow!
I'm gonna pick fresh off his interview on the overlap with Gary Neville, G Nev. He said, "Don't go for the young players. If you want to come and like talk shit about anyone and put pressure on anyone, put it on me. I'll take it." And I mentioned it before. He's had some clangers, man. I'm not going to hide from it. There's been times when I'm cursing my screen and calling him biscuit wrists and all kinds of stuff. But the way he's come back, and in the last couple of games, I'm not going to lie, he's made, I wouldn't say world class saves, but he's made important saves in moments where if we concede, we're probably losing the game. So, and looking at the stats, Vicario does not show up on a lot of these stats, man. He did at the beginning of the season, but my man is further down the table on these stats right now because of, Ange and the high line for life, mate, and all that kind of stuff. I think Onana's probably just about
regularly.
Yeah, he's just getting pipped by Onana. And Onana faces the most shots in the league, by the way. So it's not an excuse of saying, Vicario faces more shots. Onana faces the most. And he's got the highest save percentage and more clean sheets than Vicario. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's anywhere near the best goalie in the league off this year's performance. But as a rookie, he's not really a rookie either because it's kind of a bit of a techie one, isn't it? But for someone who's come into the league, he's ended up finishing the season quite strong. And there were people that were saying get rid of him earlier in the season. I think it would be harsh to get rid of him now. You've got to let him have another season and see with some better defenders in front of him and a more cohesive style of play. Hopefully he can get rid of those errors and keep growing. But yeah, I've gone Andre Onana in goal for me. Who are you going to go right back?
I've gone for Malo Gusto. He's
enough.
Been very solid for them. One of the few players from that team that's actually been, come out of the season looking all right. Because everyone else from that defence, Modiashile, stinks. Ben Chilwell, stinks. There's a lot of stinky defenders in that team, and he's not one of them. So, Malo Gusto, have it, mate. Just he needs to stop getting sent off. He gets a lot of yellow cards and a lot of sending off, so he needs to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, he's a bit aggy, but I kind of like that from right back. That's all right. I mean, he's not as bad as Reece James. Did you see him? He just came back from injury and
he gets sent off immediately.
So
what a prat.
So yeah, I mean, you know what? No big deal, because if you've got Gusto as the backup, I'm all right. Let him get sent off all the time. It's fine. Gusto is really good, man. He's a right yapper. Like, he's one of those defenders who just like, he's not going to give up. Like, he's got dog in him. Like, if your wing is going at him, he's not going to. He's going to keep fighting. He doesn't just give up and lie down. And I've seen some real good battles between him and some wingers this season. And more times than not, he comes out on top. So yeah, I've gone Gusto as well. I think he's been class, and it's actually annoying that Chelsea have got him. I know they've got most transfers wrong, but they don't need another right back, right? Like, Reece James is pretty good. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. If Reece James keeps getting injured and the Bowley Chelsea hierarchy likes selling their academy products for full profit. Exactly. So you never know. He might be on the chopping block in the future. But yeah, I've gone Gusto as well. Who have you gone then at left back? Let's go left back before we go centre backs. Who have you got there?
I don't know if this counts, but I'm going to say it anyway. Can I go for Alfie Doughty?
You can. I don't think
because he's kind of like a wing back. He plays up quite high up, but I think I'd consider him to be a left back, and he's been really good for Luton. And despite them going down, he's probably the best part of that team. So I've gone for him at left back, but it is slim pickings. I'm going to be honest with you. There aren't that many great rookie left backs to really choose from.
Yeah, he's my pick at left back as well. He's definitely a left back, and his assist stats are pretty good for what we have all deemed a pretty rubbish team. So I know Luton play a bit of a weird system, but he's definitely the left back in their defence. And yeah, we talked about it with the team of the season. Slim pickings out here, so I think it's no surprise that we've both gone for him. All right, let's do centre backs as a pair then. John, who have you gone for?
Gone Mickey van der Ven, despite the roly-polies and that. And then the other one was between Pau Torres and Calvin Bassey, and I've gone for Pau Torres because he's played a lot of games, had a sticky start with the high line that Unai plays, but he seems to have been coming into his own. And again, Villa deserve some credit here. It's been a good signing. And I think I would love to give it to Bassi or to somebody else, but I've got to go for Pau Torres, mate. How about you?
Yeah, Bassi's been good. You've gone for two left footers. I like it. You don't normally see that, do you? Like I know with defenders, sometimes you see two right-footed centre backs, but I don't think I've ever seen two left-footed centre backs. But yeah, no, I've gone Van der Ven as well, despite my Vicky Van der Men comment earlier, because I think he's been really really good actually. You know, and it's I'm being harsh to make fun of him for that. Could happen to anyone. And actually, for his partner, I've gone for Jarell Kwanzaa from Liverpool.
I like it.
I think and I might get pulled up on this, but I don't think he's played for them in previous seasons. And he's kind of come out of left field. And I really like him. I think he's done well. I think obviously Liverpool fans do the standard thing where they go overboard and act like he's the next Van Dijk. But he's looked really good. And the best compliment I can give him is he's made Konate look a bit. And everyone was raving about Konate, and I think Kwanzaa's been much better than him this season. And I think there's potential for him to build that relationship with Van Dijk going forward. But yeah, I really like him. I think he's going to be a good centre back, and I think he's in the England squad, which just got announced. So I don't know if he'll make the final squad, but I think he's been really good. All right, John, let's go.
Harsh on Tomori, by the way. I've just got to say that. So harsh on Tomori, but anyway.
He doesn't like Tomori. Yeah, he doesn't like Tomori, clearly. He's got something. I don't know what it is. Because Loftus-Cheek's in there, so it's not the overseas thing, but it's... I don't know what's going on. He's a weird guy. I can't work out Southgate. Let's hope he doesn't come to United. All right, let's go centre midfielders. Who you gone for then? Let's do the pair, unless you're doing a different formation. But what do you want to do?
All right, this is going to be real. One of these is 30, but one of these is real prisoner at the moment. I'm going for Kobbie Mainoo.
Yes,
obviously breakout season, very very good player. If we were doing a young player of the season list as well, I think he would be in that as well. But for his partner, I've gone for Mr. Wharton from Crystal Palace because I think it's his first season proper playing for them. I think they bought him from Blackburn Rovers or somebody. And he's been really, really good in this last kind of period of Glasner. Obviously, as you can tell, I was kind of running out of ideas. So I'm going to go for Mr. Wharton. Let me just double check, make sure that I'm definitely allowed.
No, you are. He came through Blackburn. He's never played in the Prem, so you're definitely allowed to pick him.
Okay.
I was tempted because that balance of Mainoo and Wharton would be class. I think Wharton's left-footed, and he's kind of a bit more mobile, running up and down, whereas Mainoo's kind of the controller. But I've let bias get into me, but from a different angle. I've gone for Wataru Endo. I think he's been really good. I don't know how he'd work as a combo with Mainoo. It might be a little bit too defensive, small, yeah. But he's got the dog in him as well. I've seen him shove a few dons around as well. But I think he kind of went under the radar at the beginning. Then everyone was kind of like doing that thing where they want to overhype him to make up for the fact they think he's been, kind of overlooked,
underappreciated. Yeah,
yeah. And then people have got onto him a bit at the end of the season when Liverpool found it a bit more difficult. But I think overall, for like a 15 or 16 million pound signing, someone that everyone was making fun of, we've got Enzo, you've got Endo, when Liverpool signed him, I think he's done really well, and I think he'll be a bit like Ronsil and do what it says on the tin. He's just going to sit in front of the back four, nothing spectacular, but I like him and I think he's a decent player. So yeah, I've gone Mainoo and Endo. I was very tempted for Wharton though, very very tempted, but we talk about Glasner and all that, and kind of it being such a short period of time, he's really only started cooking in the last couple of months. But he might be a shout for next season. Let's go left wing then. Who have you gone for?
So for left wing, I've gone for Doku. And again, that's kind of because I just don't see any other real options. And yeah, I mean, like, he hasn't been terrible. Right, let's put it that way. Like, it's hard to get into a Pep team in your first season and to really make an impact, and for him to actually play you a lot. And I think he's a one-on-one demon. right? Like he runs at you, and it's a struggle because he's got really quick feet. He's got that drop of the shoulder. He's a really good player. I think if Pep just gives him time and lets him play, I think he'll be really, really good. And I can see there's an opportunity for like a Sterling under Pep type of opportunity for him if he gets played frequently and learns quickly. And I think he could probably even get. I think his ceiling's probably even a little bit higher, based off of what I've seen so far, strength wise and so on. So I think, yeah, he's a really good player, and I'd be interested to hear who you've got because I couldn't really think of anybody else apart from him.
No, I went Doku as well. Yeah, it was. It's funny, isn't it? Because I feel like there was a period where left wing was just filled with options in the
Yeah.
league, and like we said earlier, for the team of the season, this time it was just a right pain and difficult to think of who could play in that position or who's played there well. So I've gone Doku as well. I feel like people have been a bit harsh on him as well because they were so big on him at the beginning,
Mm.
and then they kind of just because he started to get rotated out the team a bit, and it wasn't like as he wasn't taking people on in the same way and wasn't as successful, and he started to be a bit more conservative. People started, oh, Pep's had his go at him already, and now he's going to become like Grealish. He's shown us in the last month or so that he's not.
Yeah.
His ability to take people on, I can't see a world where Pep's going to decide that's not good, and I'm going to start making him play backwards and do all the Grealish stuff. So, I think he's going to cook, man, and I like him. He seems like he's got a good temperament to keep taking people on. But he definitely needs to work on that final end product thing because he does give me does remind me a bit of Sterling when it comes to like the way he strikes the ball and stuff like that, which is probably
Yeah.
not
Steel toe
Sterling's
cap
best.
boots.
Yeah, it's not Sterling's best attribute. So let's hope he. Well, no, let's maybe not hope he proves that because we don't want City to win. All right, let's go right wing though. Who have you gone?
Mohamed Kudus. There's been a few different options, but I've gone for him because I think he's just a baller. I don't think he'll stay at West Ham for very long, and rightly so. He needs to get to a better team than that. So, sorry, West Ham. If you'd won it on the last day of the season, I might be saying something different, but you didn't do me a favour, so you lot can jog it on.
Yeah, I thought that might be play some part in your your thinking and selections. But yeah, no, I like him as well. He's really good. I've probably gone a bit techie with my picks, but I've gone Musa Diaby. So I hear you.
Ooh, I like it.
He definitely started off with a bang, and at some point kind of lost his place to Liam Bailey for a bit. But then he's got back in the team, and yeah, I like him as a player. I think he really suits Aston Villa in that style. He's probably just got to try and get a bit more clinical because he was starting to miss some easy chances at some point in the season, and that let Leon Bailey get in the team. So, but I still like him. I
Yeah.
think I think he'll keep cooking if they work out how to play to his strengths a bit more. Who have you gone for in attacking mid then, or have you gone for two strikers? What have you gone for?
I've gone for an attacking mid, but he actually can play a little bit deeper. I've gone for Gustavo Hamer.
Oh
Or
yeah,
Harmer, I don't
okay.
know how you say it, but he's been man. Like I don't often watch Sheffield United, but whenever I do, he's the only thing that I enjoy watching about that team. Right, like he's
Yeah,
really good moving the ball forward. You know, probably the most creative and best part of that team, and actually a player that I think should stay in the league. Like I feel like a mid-table team could grab him and could
he's
do
too
something
good
good
for
with
them.
him. Yeah, and I think
He's too good for them.
like I wouldn't mind seeing him at like an Everton or somebody like that because I think obviously there's a lot of other good centre mids and attacking midfielders in that kind of area of the league like Morgan Gibbs White and so on. But I think he could be really good for somebody kind of mid to lower mid table team. So I'm going for him, but I'm sure there's people I've missed. And again, comment down below. Let us know if we've missed some like major shouts because this is a real hard one and it takes a lot of time and research to figure out whether they've bloody played in the Premier League before.
Yeah, so many players got scuppered because they played in 9 minutes like 2 years ago. So
Yeah,
yeah, I get it. It's a nightmare. I've gone and you again. This is going to be like my team of the season.
techiness.
I've gone for Kudus here because I know it's kind of like the Palmer argument you made before. He starts right wing, kind of comes more central, and he can
Yeah,
probably play anywhere across the front line. But I've put him just behind the striker because I feel like he's a good link-up player with the player I'm going to put as centre forward. And I couldn't leave him out. Like, there's no way I could put Diaby right wing and not find a place for Kudus because I think he's just.
Yeah.
I was saying it to our mum earlier on the weekend when we were watching the footy, and he's just too good for West Ham. Like, I mean it with all of the offence for West Ham. Like, I actually I like them and everything, but how they've managed to S-house their way into Edson Alvarez, Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta, God knows. Like, they're better off with Soufal and Soucek and Ward-Prowse and those guys. That's West Ham. That's the heritage, not these silky ballers from bloody Ajax and Lyon. But yeah, I don't think he'll be there long. Like, there's no chance. He's got to have a clause somewhere in there that lets him go soon. So I'm sure we'll see him at a European club or a big Premier League club that play in Europe.
I have a feeling if they can, Newcastle might try and get him because Almiron's a bit stinky.
Yeah, he would be great for them.
Sick in that team if they've got the money for it. If they get 100+ mil for either Isak or Bruno Guimaraes, I think that could be somewhere that they try and spend a little bit of that money, especially if there's a clause in there. But yeah, anyway.
They'll probably need to spend a lot of that money because I'm sure this Kudus clause is probably not far off what the clauses are in those guys' contracts. So they might have to splurge it all. But I wouldn't. You know what? It would be a good bet because I think he'll absolutely bang for them. Let's go centre forward then, John. Who have you gone for?
Mr. Muniz from Fulham. I know, again, prisoner of the moment shout. Yeah, he hasn't played. This is his first season for them, is it not? Isn't it? Crap.
We might need to get a VAR check.
No.
I'm pretty sure I checked Muniz when I was doing my team, and he played a couple games for them.
No, he played the full season for them. Crap. All right, you tell yours because I need to go back because I didn't realise he went on bloody loan to Fulham to Middlesbrough. I thought he went straight Flamengo to Middlesbrough and then to Fulham, but no, I'm wrong. Oh all right. God! All right, you go first, mate.
My centre forward is Rasmus. No, it's Rasmus, man. You knew this was going to be my bias entry. I don't give a F. I looked at the stats. I know people were getting onto him. He's had some dry spells. He's also had some hot streaks. He scored 16 goals in 40 odd games in all comps. Super clinical in the Champions League. I know we had a shocker, so no one's going to talk about that. But he was really good in the Champions League. And then, yeah, he was very streaky in the league. Took him a hell of a long time to score his first goal, but after he scored that, they started to rein in for a while until he got injured. And then what's become very obvious with him is he's a rhythm player. Like, he can't come back from an injury and just start banging again. He needs to start getting touches of the ball and start getting involved before he can, look like he's going to ever try and score a goal. But as soon as he does, they start raining down. So, yeah, I just look at his shots that he has in games, which is minimal. I think he was averaging at one point like one shot a game. But his conversion rate has been as high as like 40% or something. I think at the end of the season, it reached like 45-50%, which is absolutely nuts for a striker. And especially for one that doesn't see the ball that often. So, yeah, I know there might be strikers out there who people compare him with, Nunez's and Jackson's and all that have more Premier League goals, but I would pick Højlund over those guys any day of the week. So yeah, I've gone super biased, and I'm going to go Rasmus. Have you Google searched your one now? You know who you're going to go for?
Yeah, it's going to have to be Højlund or Nicholas Jackson, and I don't want to say Nicholas Jackson, even though we've had this argument before, right? And I say that the difference between them is not as big as everybody says it is. I can't in good faith put Nicholas Jackson in this team. So I'll go for Rasmus as well. I think, as you said, he's a rhythm player. He's not in the best setup right now. It's really difficult for a young player to come into that kind of setup at Man United where it's just madness going on 24/7. And if you're just trying to build up and get some minutes and not have everyone watching you 24/7, it's a very difficult club to play at. And I think if he can be coached well, and surrounded with players that actually feed him the ball, he could turn out to be something really good. And I think, while I don't think he has necessarily all of the skill set required to be like a full, complete striker, I do think he's still very young and he's got a lot of the physical attributes you'd want from like a real clinical, fast striker. So I'll give it to Højlund. I'll give it to Højlund.
Yes, we've converted you. But no, I mean, I get the argument with Jackson and even with Nunes. Like, I don't think they're rubbish players, but I can't pick those guys when they've had that. Like some of the bloopers. Like I know Højlund has had times where he could create chances for himself. I also don't agree with someone when they say, "Oh, he doesn't get service," because I think you have to create yourself as well as a striker. It's not just down to the players around you.
Yeah.
But the misses Nunes, Jackson, and all those guys have had, they're not strikers, man. You can't have a striker have those misses. You just can't. A striker would score those goals. And I just, yeah, that's where the conversation ends with me. Just as a comparison, as a striker, if you want to say there might be better players, I can hear that argument. That's no problem. I mean, we've had the same conversations with Haaland and Isak and Watkins and all those guys too, right? Like we probably say Haaland is a better bagsman and finisher.
Yeah.
But as an all round player and what we want, we may pick other people. So I think when it comes down to that, it's a bit of a no brainer. All right, that's our team of the seasons, both performance based and then rookie based. But let's get into the last segment then, John. Real quick, we've got the FA Cup final on Saturday. City against United, repeat of last year. City going for the double after they've done the treble, after they've done quadruple of titles in the last 4 years. So they're hopefully they're working their way down. But yeah, they're looking pretty good. I think they haven't lost a game in months, if I remember correctly. Whereas we lost about 3 games ago. So we're coming in totally different places. We're just happy to be winning games, and they're doing it like they just woke up like that. So, I mean, are you just going to draw the line and say City win easy? What's your prediction?
I don't think they win easy because I think that tie it's hard for them to just roll you over. Like obviously we saw, was it last season? They managed to put a lot of goals past you, but I think Ten Hag has, since the Liverpool battering, I think he's figured out a way to be a bit more compact and to really approach those games with a bit more caution. So I don't think that you guys will go out to just try and score goals and leave yourself open and exposed to them just to slap goals past you for fun. I do think it will be like a 2-1, 3-1 win to City, though. I just think they've got too much quality in their team and they will eventually break you down. And obviously you've got injuries this, injuries that, and still, despite these 2 last wins, you're still not, in my opinion, a good enough team to beat them. So I think it's going to be a City win. I do think he'll score though, just because I think the occasion, and I think the Man United Liverpool game in the FA Cup as well also showed that you guys can build up for an occasion every now and then. You don't always just bottle everything and mess everything up. So yeah, I'll go for a City. If I have to choose a number, I'm going to go 3-1, but I don't think it will be an absolute drubbing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with your logic. I think it makes sense. I think before these last 2 results, I don't think bookies would have even taken bets on City winning this game anymore. But I think the last 2 games have probably opened some hope and possibilities for United fans. I still think we're huge underdogs, and I think that if we manage to get a win, it will be one of the. On paper, it sounds crazy. Size of club sounds crazy, but in terms of where we really are in this football world, it would be one of the biggest cup final upsets, considering where we both are right now.
It'd be like bloody Coventry beating them, for God's sake.
Almost. I was going to say, it's almost like the Coventry beating us kind of result. I mean, not in stature, because, we're a bigger club than City, but in terms of where we are as a team. Like, and the disarray, all the rumours around Ten Hag, all the injuries, the terrible league position, the Champions League finishing bottom. Like, this FA Cup's been the only decent thing that we've had this season. So it's kind of written in the stars. And because of that, you know, I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm going to go for United to win. But I'm going to say it's going to be 1-1 after extra time, and it'll go down to pens, and we'll win on pens. Because City are shy at pens, and we tend to be decent at pens these days, which is a nice turnaround. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and us nick it. But I would not be shocked at all. I actually think normally I would agree with you and say it's probably hard to imagine a team slapping us in a final like this, because, you know, generally finals aren't that open. But I don't know. City might just want to you know, I feel like last season there was a lot of pressure because the treble was hanging. I feel like they can come to this game a little bit freer, and that might not be what we want. We've got to hope for it to become. I heard someone, who is it? Someone, I think Andre Onana was talking about in that interview, how City kind of don't want it to be a basketball game. They want it to be controlled, and how Liverpool kind of actually revel in it being a bit back and forth. And luckily, we love to play basketball football. So we've got to hope that we end up playing that way and kill them when we get our opportunities. But the form of some of our attackers is a bit worrying. Obviously, Rashford's been not even playing recently, but Garnacho's looked leggy. Diallo's looked really good. I'll say he's been a bright spark.
Ahmad in,
Yeah, get Bruno playing with him, do a little 1-2s. Foyland can start. I think that would be good as well. And then really it's a lot to do with what we have option-wise in defence. Because if I see Casemiro at centre-back, I'm bricking it. If I see him in midfield with Amrabat or with someone else, Amrabat and Mainu, I feel a bit better. But yeah, it really comes down to that. But I'm definitely going heart over head with this one. But yeah, oh my God, it will be absolute scenes if we win it. I won't forget this season, but it'll give me some slight joy to go into next season. But all right, Johns, this has been a hell of a comeback, Ep. We've done a lot, it seems like, in one episode back. But I guess we owe the few fans that we have, considering the amount of time we took off. But yeah, we'll wrap up the episode here. Thanks for jumping back on, Johns, and
of course,
giving me your Rodri hate and your Man City hate and a little bit of sourness that we need to keep the pod going. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in to this week's episode. I said this, I realised it after last episode. I said, see you next week. And we just didn't come back for weeks and weeks and weeks. But I will say, see you next week. And we will be here next week with our FA Cup review. And I don't know why I said it that way, review. And also our end of season awards for, you know, our player of the season, manager of the season, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, see you next week. Take care, guys.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Ant.